When you glance at a clock face, everything seems perfectly obvious. 12 divisions, 60 minutes, 60 seconds. The hands move in a circle, always the same direction, always the same pace. But ask yourself a simple question. Why 12? Not 10, not 16, not 20. Why did we slice the day into 12 parts twice, 12 hours before noon, 12 after? And here's a question that's asked even less often. Why do the hands move in the direction we call clockwise? What if history had unfolded differently and every clock on the planet ran the other way? The answer doesn't begin in a clockmaker's workshop. It begins with a shadow on the ground. Today we're going to unpack where the number 12 came from, why it turned out to be a stroke of genius, how a shadow cast by a stick in ancient Egypt determined the direction of every clock hand on the planet, and why a system invented thousands of years ago still lives on your wrist today. Let's travel back roughly 4,000 years to ancient Egypt and Babylon. People already understood that the day needed to be divided into parts, but into how many? The Babylonians worked in a base 60 number system. That sounds strange until you realize one thing. 60 divides evenly by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30. This makes 60 nearly perfect for practical calculations, far more useful than 10. The Egyptians noticed something else. In the night sky, they identified 36 groups of stars, called deacons. Each night, 12 of them rose above the horizon. 12 nightly guardians, 12 for the day as well. The number stuck, but there was also a more down-to-earth explanation. On a human hand, not counting the thumb, there are exactly 12 knuckle segments, 3 on each of 4 fingers. Using the thumb as a pointer, ancient people could count to 12 on a single hand. 12 is a number literally built into the human body. Now, about direction. Where did clockwise actually come from? Before mechanical clocks, people measured time with sundials. At the center stood a vertical rod called a gnomon. Its shadow swept in a circle throughout the day. Here's the key point. In the northern hemisphere, where most of human civilization developed, the shadow of a gnomon moves from left to right, exactly the direction we now call clockwise. When the first mechanical clocks were built in medieval Europe, craftsmen simply copied the movement of that shadow. Clocks should move the way the sun moves overhead. It seemed like the only natural choice. If the main centers of civilization had been in the southern hemisphere, where a gnomon's shadow moves in the opposite direction, every clock in the world would run counterclockwise, and we would call that clockwise. Fine, 12 hours makes sense. But why 60 minutes in an hour rather than 100? That would be far more convenient in a decimal system. The Babylonians are to blame again. Their base 60 number system survived for millennia because it proved extraordinarily practical. The Greek astronomer Claudius Ptolemy used the system in his writings to divide a degree of a circle into 60 small parts, in Latin partes minutae primae, and 60 even smaller parts, partes minutae secundae. From those Latin phrases came minutes and seconds. When medieval European scholars read the Greek astronomers, they simply carried this system over to measuring time. 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute. The French Revolution at the end of the 18th century tried to fix this. The revolutionaries introduced decimal time, 10 hours in a day, 100 minutes in an hour, 100 seconds in a minute. This lasted about 2 years. People hated it. The old system came back and no one has touched it since. The next time you glance at a clock, remember, what you're looking at isn't just a device, it's a cast impression of several thousand years of human history. 12, because the Babylonians loved numbers that divide easily and because Egyptians counted stars. 60, because Ptolemy wrote treatises on astronomy. Clockwise, because civilization was born north of the equator, and shadows on the ground moved that way. Change any one of those historical circumstances, and the time on your watch would look completely different. The most familiar things around us hold the most unexpected stories. You just have to ask why. If this video surprised you, hit like and share it with someone who thinks they already know everything about clocks. Subscribe for more stories about what's hiding behind ordinary things every week.